Greetings all, Trendane here. Um, so recently, sorry, I completely forgot why I turned on the camera there for a second. Recently, I saw a video from Dael Kingsmill, um, who does some, by the way, amazing videos on mythology over on the Geek and Sundry Vlogs channel. So definitely go check that out if you haven't seen it. Very, very cool stuff. But on her more personal channel, she recently did this series of questions about how different things are pronounced. She lives in Australia. So there's a bit of a difference in the way that things are pronounced between where she lives and other places in the world. Now, at the end of her video, she was supposed to tag somebody, apparently, and did. She tagged everybody. So I guess that by default includes me. So here I have the questions, and they go as follows. What is it called when you throw toilet paper on a house? Um, when I grew up back in the 80s, I mean 70s and 80s, but it was in the 80s that most of this tended to happen. Um, we usually called it TPing someone's house, papering someone's house, rolling someone's house. But usually we didn't roll their house. We rolled the tree in their front yard. I say we. I never did this because I know what a horrible time it is to try to get all of that toilet paper out of said tree. Which is not to say that it ever happened to me, but it did happen to a friend of mine, and I was conscripted to assist in the cleanup process. Not sure why. Anyway, so yeah, those typically what we referred to them as. I'm not sure if it's the dog is in the hallway and has found her old bone, and she will not leave it alone. What is the bug that when you touch it, it curls into a ball? Typically, we referred to those as either pill bugs, or where I grew up in Texas, more commonly we referred to them as roly-polies. What is the bubbly carbonated drink called? There are several different variations depending upon where one lives. Where I lived, we usually called it soda. Or we went with the very generic Coke, no matter what brand you were talking about. You were like, hey, while you're over there, can you get me a Coke? And it's like, yeah, what kind do you want? It's like, Mountain Dew. You know, it's like, but you said you wanted a Coke. It's very generalized kind of thing. A lot of friends of mine, especially from up in the New England area and on the eastern seaboard, they tend to refer to it as pop. Some people call it soda pop. I typically just say soda, unless I get it at a like a fast food place where you got to serve yourself because you put it in the little machine and because that is a fountain drink, and I don't refer to it as soda or pop or anything like that. It's a fountain drink. But getting back to the the generic calling it Coke, no matter what it is, there's a reason. And that reason is this is a Q-tip by most people I know. That's not the brand that it is, but that is what it has become known as. It is a cotton swab, according to the packaging, because it's generic. It's not Q-tip. Q-tip is a specific brand. Same thing with Kleenex. Kleenex is a specific brand, but tissues have become known as Kleenex because it's been synonymous with it for so long. Same thing with Q-tips and stuff like that. So that's why we had the same thing with Coke back in the day. What's the next question? What do you call gym shoes? Okay, when I was a kid, we typically called them tennis shoes. Now, though we pronounced it tenny shoes, I think it was just that we were blurring together the words tennis shoes, and it just became tennis shoes. And so it became tenny shoes. Now, as more and more shoes are getting more designed for very specific activities, we've got tennis shoes, hiking shoes, walking shoes, cross trainers, sneakers. Sneakers was another one that I used a lot. climbing shoes, just all kinds of stuff, riding shoes, biking shoes, all kinds of stuff. I still usually refer to them as either tennis shoes or sneakers, or simply shoes. Typically because I only have one pair of shoes. I wear them until they start to fall apart, and then I go get another pair of shoes. So I need shoes that do everything. One pair of shoes that does everything. I don't want to be like Imelda Marcos and own like 50 billion pairs of shoes. That is a point of contention between me and several friends of mine who are like, no, you need to have shoes for doing this, and you need to have another pair of shoes for doing this, and another pair of shoes for doing this, and when they're 6 months old, you need to buy new shoes. I'm like, no, I don't make that kind of money. I'm just a voice actor starting. Anyway, what do you say to address a group of people? Well, as we saw at the beginning of this, I usually say either, hey everybody, or hey there, or most commonly, I say greetings all. Now, I will especially do that in text, if I'm speaking to people in text, like on, a Twitch chat or IRC or whatever, YouTube, what have you. But I've noticed that I tend to say greetings all anytime I'm not speaking directly to living people. For example, recording this video, though you're hearing it, as though I'm speaking to you directly, it's more of a broadcast kind of thing. So I'm much more inclined. I'm speaking to the camera. It's just acting as an avatar of you. And I will tell you now, it is not doing nearly as good of a job of looking absolutely beautiful as you are. Just saying. Anyway, so when I'm speaking to an amorphous group through some kind of technology, it's usually greetings all, especially in text. But I'll also say, hey everybody, or hey ya. What do you call the kind of spider or spider-like creature that has an oval-shaped body and extremely long legs? Much like Dael Kingsmill said in her video, daddy long legs. That's what they've always been. What do you call your grandparents? This is an interesting one as well. If I'm speaking to my grandparents, which I believe they're both dead now. Anyway, if I'm speaking to them, I will say Mama and Pampa. That's what I typically referred to them as when I was growing up. If I were speaking of them to anyone who also referred to them as Mama and Pampa, for example, my mother or my sister or my brother or whatever, I would also say Mama and Pampa because it was a common reference between us. Anybody that didn't share that reference, I wouldn't say, oh, yeah, I was talking to my Mama the other day. I would say I was talking to my grandmother because they don't share that reference with me, so it's odd to use it with them. There was also, I think it might have been the 4th episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where no one has gone before, and Captain Picard runs into the ghost or the mental projection or the illusion or the whatever of his mother in the hallway. She's sitting at the little tea table and blah. And when he looks at her, he says, Maman. And I was like, wait, that's his grandmother? And it took me a long time to realize that he was referring to his mother, that was not his grandmother, that was his mother. So that took me a little while. But I said, wait a minute, that's what I call my grandmother. Why would he get, okay, whatever. Moving on. What do you call the wheeled contraption in which you carry groceries at the supermarket? Typically, I refer to it as a cart. Sometimes I refer to it as a basket, but more often than not, that's the little handheld basket that I carry with me. But usually, if I'm using one of them, it's a cart. I do know lots of people who call it a trolley, a shopping trolley, but I usually call it a cart. What do you call it when the rain falls while the sun is shining? Interestingly, over in Dale's video, I'm going to call her Dael because I keep saying Kingsmill instead of Mill. I don't know what's going on with my face. I think it's the fact that I've been recording voiceover stuff all day, and my mouth has just refused to play along for now. So from this point on, Dael, she said that they refer to it as sun showers, which makes perfect sense. I never called it that, though. In fact, I simply said that the sun was shining while the rain was falling, which sounds like a spy passphrase. But where I grew up in Texas, and maybe other places, the bit of the wives' tale to it was that the devil was whipping his wife. That's what it means when the sun is shining but the rain is falling. Actually, yeah, it's not a spy thing. It reminds me of the phrase that all the people who worked for the shadow would, but that was the snow is falling. Anyway, what is the thing you change the TV channel with? I know many people who call it a clicker, even though it doesn't click anymore. We used to have one that had one button. It was this kind of chrome rectangular, like an extended cube, sort of thing with one blue button in the middle of it, and it had something like a tuning fork inside it, almost like a tuning fork. And you push the button, and it goes ding, and the TV had an audio receiver on it, and whenever it heard that tone, it would change to the next channel. Dog in her bone again. Now the problem was my grandparents also had a cockatiel who would fly around the house at random, and they had these like wall sconces that had, like, candles with chains hanging between them. They went along with the bronze conquistador busts that they had all over the place. It was the 70s. It was a very common thing. Just don't worry about it. Anyway, so the cockatiel would go and land on the chain, and as soon as the chain started jingling, the TV audio receiver would pick that up and start changing channels like crazy. And so you would have to go ding, 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 ding until it went all the way back around the dial to get back to the original thing. Or you'd have to get up, go, and start change the channel manually, which kind of undermines the whole idea of having what I refer to it as the remote. Of course, nowadays, remotes don't ding, and they don't click, and they don't do it, and they're just, unless you get a bunch of, like, dried Coke or soda on the keys, and then it makes sticky sounds when you do it, and then you peel your thumb off of it. And it just, Moving on. What do you generally call confectionery? I refer to it as candy, most commonly. On occasion, depending on what kind it is, it's either candy, or I refer to it as exactly what kind of candy it is. It'll be chocolate, or M&Ms, or a lollipop, or the Jolly Rancher. Lollipop and sucker are interchangeable. Sometimes Tootsie Pop, whatever, depending on what kind it is. More often than not, I tend to refer to it by brand names. What do you call the flimsy open-toed sandals that you would wear on a hot day or to the beach? Typically, I refer to those as flip-flops. I know that Dale mentioned that they call them thongs. We used to call them that. Yeah, we used to call them that until thongs took on a whole other meaning. And then we stopped calling them that. It was like, that is not a thong. Those are not thongs. These are thongs. They're very sheer. Sorry. Sort of thing. Is there a nickname often given to McDonald's fast food restaurants? Around here, yes. Typically, it's either McDonald's or Mickey D's. Mickey D's is very common. I usually say McDonald's. I almost never say Mickey D's unless I'm saying it in jest. But yeah, it's McDonald's. Are there any other obvious differences between common words you would use and their counterparts in other regions of the world? Yes, in fact, Dale mentioned one in her video where she said pecan. We also have pecan, depending upon where you grew up. Pecan. For me, it's pecan pie. It's not pecan pie. Many arguments have been had over that. And there are probably a dozen or so others that I can't think of right now. And it's getting very hot in my room. So I will save those perhaps for next time. Are there other... Well, okay, this last question, which isn't one of the 13 that was listed. It's just... Anyway, there were 13 questions and 2 extras sitting at the bottom. And this last one was, any other interesting qualities you've noticed that are typical to your accent? Not so much an accent, but more of a regional colloquialisms. And that is that when I'm referring to highways, especially major highways around the area, I tend to refer to them as the whatever. The 5, the 101, the 83, the 92, the 680, the 880, the 10, whatever. we'll take the 5. A lot of people, when I first moved to Northern California, like, you're from Southern California, aren't you? And I'm like, what? They're like, we don't call it the I-5 up here. We don't call it the 101. It's just 101. You take 101 up to San Francisco. You don't take the 101 to San Francisco. I'm like, I don't care. You know which road I mean. And sometimes I interchange them. Sometimes I'll be like, no, you go. That is okay. If I'm giving somebody directions, I'll say, go north on 101 for 6 miles. I won't say you go north on the 101 for 6 miles. But they're like, well, what's the nearest highway? I'll say the 101. I won't say 101. It's weird. It's very strange. Anyway, so that's just about 16 minutes. Pretty close. And I will let you guys go, and I'll talk to you later. And until next time, be careless.